So this person wrote, "Is this financial abuse? I'm honestly not sure what to make of this, and I've read conflicting things. Is this really considered financial abuse? I'm a stay-at-home mom and have been for 2 years now. We have 2 children and I'm in school part-time. I have zero access to any funds, which means if I want so much as a stick of gum, I have to ask for it. If I want to drink while I'm on break between classes, I have to ask him to send money. I have to tell him when I need to go to the store because he does not. And he asked me to tell him the exact total, and I don't get a dime extra. I can't go anywhere, do anything, or buy anything without having to ask first. He said this is not financial abuse due to the fact that he gives me money every time I ask for it, and he tells me that I treat him as an ATM. Someone help, am I losing it?"
Oh my gosh. Well, first off, financial abuse is really the one partner controlling all the finances to make the other person, dependent on them. They lose their complete independence. So I would say without a doubt, this is what this person is experiencing. He's almost making her like a prisoner, like with no financial options, like having to ask for everything. And I really don't like that he said, no, this isn't financial abuse. Like you're gaslighting this person.
Totally
right?
gaslighting.
This one makes me hot. I don't like the situation. And I don't like to immediately jump to like, he's doing this and this. Maybe he doesn't see it this way. You know what I mean? Like I'm trying to see both sides. Like maybe he doesn't have like ill intentions, but I don't like how he said like it's not financial abuse, like he's thought about it before. But I also question how'd they get here? Like they have kids and everything, but like did she agree to this? Like did he say this is how it'll be since you're like staying at home? Like maybe this will be easier. Like I want to know how this started. I always question that. Like, did you think this was going to be a good idea? I don't know. This is a tough one. And I really don't like the situation.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up. And just to be clear, like I do 100% think this is financial abuse, and like this
100%.
like that. Yeah, that's a heavy term to use, but this absolutely warrants it.
Yep.
But I think throughout all of these situations, like you have to recognize that while the situation may be extremely shitty and maybe you didn't think this would happen or you trusted someone or whatever, like there has to be a level of accountability for how you got there. And I do think that's going to be helpful if you can recognize that, because that's what's going to help you move on. Like you can understand, hey, I also contributed to this. There has to be a level of accountability that happens with this, because you put yourself out there and you didn't think like you would get bit and have to come back, but like you have to recognize that you had to take steps to allow this to happen as well. And even down to this situation, right? Like what stopped you from going down to the bank and opening an account up for yourself and making sure that you had your own money, right? Like I'm sure there was some way that he convinced you to do it. And again, probably gaslighting you and telling you this is for the best. But like, this sounds like honestly, like an over controlling and abusive husband. And I'm not someone who would say like, you need to divorce this person so lightly, but this situation, even more than the last one where we brought this up, is like, this seems like a situation where you really need to distance yourself from this person and set yourself up to where you can make a move out. You can get out of the situation if it comes to it. Because if you're going to him and saying like, hey, like this is really hard for me, it's not working for me, and he's turning it around on you and saying you use him like an ATM, chances are that the moment you do try to leave, like it's going to escalate the situation. And so you got to figure out, like, you almost have to have an escape plan. And that sounds so terrible, because if this is her husband, like this is the person, once you get married, who you should be able to trust the most. And for that person to be, betraying your trust and basically putting you in a hole, like it's a tough situation. And I think for a lot of people, it can cause a lot of like mental strain, in the sense that like, they don't think they can get out of this because there's no light at the end of the tunnel,
No, absolutely not. And I think you're right. I think it was probably, presented to her in like a really good way. Like, oh, you're staying home with the kids. Like, I'll just take care of the finances and you can just, access the money through me. But then it turned into this like, okay, I need $10.05. And he just gives her exactly that. And she doesn't feel like she can do anything else. And this is how, people stay stuck in relationships, because you feel like you have literally no options. And she doesn't, because she's a student now, has no income, and is taking care of their kids. So you're probably not safe in this relationship. So for me, I'm going to start with, I don't know. I'm not saying a relationship like this, that's too weird, unless it really was like an innocent thing. And then he says, hey, we can join on everything again. I don't think he's going to say that. But for me, I'm probably going to try to find family. I know you don't work. You're probably going to have to try to find a family or a friend that you're able to take you and your kids with. And what's probably going to happen here, Nick? He's probably going to go to the courts or whatever and try to get custody of those kids. because he has the financial means to do so, which is also very scary. And also probably why this happens a lot and people stay, because he threatens them. You know, they get threatened with their kids having to stay with the parent that has the money, you know, in the house that they can afford. But I feel like, I don't know, this is so tricky, but I feel like you have to start with maybe having family that you can move in with. You have a safe place to go. I don't know. Is there some resources out there with a women's, you know, like a women's shelter? They'd probably be a really good guide for you to be able to help you understand like what your options are as far as this goes. I don't know legally what you can do in this type of situation because it's not physical abuse. You know, it's financial abuse, but at the same time, he's giving you money when you need it or when you need to spend something. So it's just so hard, but you know, this is just so much deeper than just like this money issue here. I really feel for this person.
Yeah. And I feel like situations like this are why people get so hesitant around the idea of combining finances. And they didn't say if they were married, but if you're going to get married with someone, like there has to be such a high level of transparency with the money. And if you're going to combine your finances, like you both need to be on the same page. Like with my wife and I, like this situation literally just could not happen. Like we are co-owners of all of our accounts. Like she has as much authority over what happens with the money from the bank's perspective as I do. And we set it up that way intentionally so that whether there was bad intentions or not, like something like this couldn't happen just by the way that we set it up. And I think if you're going to combine finances to any degree, you have to put those safeguards in place, not because you don't trust the person, but so that you completely avoid situations like this from happening at all.
Yeah. And conversely, like my husband and I, you know, we keep things separate. I have all of my money that I make from my job in my own account. Now we talk about our finances so we know where everything's going, but there's a level of safety there because I have my own money and things like that. This is a really scary situation because this person has no options here. The person, their husband or whoever, husband, boyfriend, they want this. They want to back them into a corner to have zero options so they can control them to the nth degree, whatever they want to control them with. And this is the first step. Ugh, makes me sick.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, like it could be difficult to do something legally about this because, you know, there could be on his end, like a trail of, hey, like I send her money whenever she needs it. Like I am the provider. I could provide more of a stable household for the child. So I think the child should come with me. Like I'm hesitant because I don't know the full story, but I would say like if this definitely isn't a situation where you're losing it and like you're out of step here. Like I think you are probably underreacting, like we've said in an earlier situation. And I think this is time to where you need to start planning, how do I get out of this safely with me and my child intact? And that might mean creating some sort of paper trail, right? Yeah. It might mean like recording conversations when you say, hey, I want to have access to the bank accounts. Hey, I'm thinking of opening my own checking account and I want to put some of that money in there. And you could frame it as, so I don't have to bug you about it, right? Like there could be a creative way that you go about this to make sure that you can have a safe exit from this, because there's too many instances where situations like this turn violent because this person is trying to set up this scenario where they have complete control over everything. And the second you try to tamper with that, that's when they resort to violence because they haven't had to before because of the way that they've crafted it. But now that would be the only option for them to keep things going the way that they want to, which is so unfortunate because this happens probably a lot more than people realize.
Oh, I definitely think it does, which is why I always want both parties to understand the finances and have control of them. I do think this person should potentially maybe contact a lawyer in their area. I know they're not gonna have money, but if they explain like what's happening, I think someone would probably at least give them some friendly advice of like what could potentially like do in this situation just to see what your options are. Cause like I said, who knows what's going to happen. You know, if she does try to leave or plan some sort of like escape, I don't know. This is so sad.
Yeah, this is a heavy situation. And I think you need to be very intentional about the steps that you take moving forward and always prioritize making sure that you and your kid are safe. You know, at the end of the day, like that's what you got to do.
The information, opinions, and recommendations provided on this podcast are for entertainment purposes only and do not constitute professional financial advice. Any financial decisions you make based on the content of this podcast are your responsibility. We strongly recommend consulting with a licensed financial advisor or other qualified professional before making any significant financial decisions. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge that we are not liable for any financial outcomes.